The Dark is Rising, right? Fantasy. American boy comes to England where he discovers that actually he's the last in a generation of seekers and who have to find a whole bunch of stuff, otherwise the world will come to an end. It's adapted by John Hodge from a story by Susan Cooper, with the baddie, Ryder, played by Christopher Eccleston, right? John Hodge did the screenplay for Trainspotting. Christopher Eccleston was in Shallow Grave, which John Hodge also wrote. And it's described, again by the BBFC 12A, for sustained threat, moderate fantasy, violence and horror. All that sounds good, doesn't it? Should we have a clip?
Yes.
Shall we try?
Yes, let's try.
You're frightened of me. You should be, Will. I'm very angry. All this time it was you. Now give me the sign.
What sign?
Give it me now!
I don't know what you're talking about.
Leave him be.
Leave the boy alone, Ryder. You can't fight us all. You're not strong enough.
Not yet, but I will be. You and all your kind will be destroyed.
Now, despite the promise of fantasy, violence and horror, I always think that kids ought to see horror movies. I think horror is good for them. The Dark is Rising, and I was walking down a high street the other day, and I looked in a charity shop window, and there was a novel by somebody.
Sure, it was a novel.
Yeah, it was a big thing, right?
No chance of it being a novella.
No chance of it being a novella. This was a big weighted.
Did it have a Vendepunkt?
I've got no idea because I didn't read it. I just looked at the front cover, which said Barry Trotter. It was Barry Trotter and the Unashamed Parody, right? And it was obviously somebody sort of cashed in the Harry Potter thing by doing a Barry Trotter novel. And I have to say that the name Barry Trotter was the name that leapt into my mind whilst watching Dark is Rising, because you just think the bar on this sort of stuff has been raised very heavily, not only by the Harry Potter novels, which incidentally I am now, of course, reading to my kids, as you promised me I would, and as is now always coming true. Everything that you say is right, does turn out to be right, and I'm just having to relive my life in the knowledge that television isn't the Antichrist after all, and and you're correct, and Neil Young's great, blah 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 blah. But you watch Dark is Rising and you just think, this is no longer good enough. I mean, it's a shambles. It's all over the place. There's loads of special effects. It's trying very hard. I mean, I think John Hodge is a great screenwriter, and I can only assume that we don't have on screen the proper version of what his vision ought to be. Even Christopher Eccleston seems oddly uncomfortable in the role. I think Christopher Eccleston is terrific. I mean, obviously, people quickly forget that he was the guy who relaunched Doctor Who, although Doctor Who has subsequently become, really wonderful under who is him now? What's his name?
Doctor Who?
Who's the guy who plays Doctor Who now? Him.
It's him.
David
Tennant.
Tennant, fine. Who obviously is great and is up there with, we're all
How
suffering
stupid not
from
to
this.
be able to remember it instantly.
It's up there with John Pertwee and, Patrick Troughton. But the fact is it was relaunched by Christopher Eccleston, and he's a great actor. But Dark is Rising is a strange mess. There's some scenery change from Ian McShane and plodding stuff from everybody else. You just sit there thinking, it's a Barry Trotter book. It's not great.